Maureen Austin. I teach in the Fort Smith Public School District, which is about 45 minutes south of here. And I'm a third grade teacher and have been doing it. I've been in the biz, as you say, 11 years, going on 12.
Awesome.
And I'm here really just to kind of expand just build onto what I've learned. And our district last year provided Chromebooks for every third and fourth grader. So previous to that, I had only had the use of a cart with very antiquated equipment.
Sure.
So basically, it was a every once in a while thing, and then we were moving into this constant integration of technology. So last year was probably out of every year of my career, was probably a huge learning curve for me, and it totally, I got hooked.
Right.
EdTech.
Oh, see, that's
awesome. I'm hooked.
That's right.
So that's why I'm here, just to kind of bump it up a little bit.
Yeah.
So,
That's awesome. Yeah. So that forced you out of the comfort zone where you had been existing, and in your case, you actually latched onto it and ran with it, right?
Absolutely. And we were very fortunate in that Fort Smith provided each school with a tech specialist. And she came in initially just to get my kids going on procedures. This is what you do with the Chromebook. These are the language you need to use when you're using the Chromebook. And we realized very, very quickly that she and I were a good fit. And that led to some collaborations of some really big PBL experiences, and I'm actually doing a session this afternoon. She and I are doing a session to tell that story of how we just started to show the kids, this is how you open the Chromebook.
Right,
this is how you put it at 45 degrees, to creating these incredible experiences for learning. So, yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So don't you find now, isn't it funny how technology has caught up with us? And, when we first started doing one-to-one and we first started infusing technology into learning,
Right.
They almost made us seem like we had to rely on it. Like, okay, we've got to move everything now. And what we've learned over the past 5 years, is that, oh no, it's a tool now, and it's a great tool. It's as handy as my diary and my pencil. It's, I need this journal with me every day. So in your grade level, all your kids have email addresses. You're Google School, I'm guessing.
Right.
So, and they have docs and they have all that good stuff in Google Drive. Do you use Google Classroom with them?
We do. We are exclusively, and for me to say that, we caught on to Google Classroom very early on, and it's so, I don't know with some colleagues how they've resisted to it when it's so easy. It's not even a matter of that it transformed the learning, which was great, but it transformed my time management. It transformed the ease in which I prepare for units and things. And it's kind of one of those things like you have in your life. I don't know what I did before this.
Right.
I really don't remember teaching before last year.
Yeah.
And it was very user friendly. It wasn't hard it took a couple hours, dig in and set up the classroom, find the features. And that's kind of the way I learned with that on my own. It was more the tools like Google Drawings and the different apps that the tech specialists helped me use. And I didn't want to use them as babysitters. I wanted to use them as, these are powerful tools that help kids make relevance and meaning to the learning and create the products and give them voice. And it was from the first couple projects on, we were teaching together, and I stood there in the middle of my room just with, she's like, your eyes were just absolutely huge, because they took over. I mean, it puts you in that facilitator role, which is where we're supposed to be at this point in education.
Yeah.
It opened that up without pain to me. It just kind of came naturally, which is great.
Yeah,
that is awesome. So for the teachers who are at that point where they haven't bridged that gap, they haven't taken that journey over into what Google Classroom does, or even see how they can use it. So what are some of the things that you do? What are some of the ways that you use Google Classroom with your students that you could share with other listeners out there who may not quite understand how it all works together?
I think the first thing I did is we really, we set it up as more of we were trying, in those first initial weeks, once we got the Chromebooks, we were still trying, my partner teacher and I are very focused on classroom culture. And we used it as a tool to build the culture first. So that was a real safe, and there were procedures, we had expectations, this is the terminology used, that it allowed them to get to know each other in a very safe way. I mean, there are kids that you do those beginning of year activities. There are those 3 or 4 who don't speak, who don't want to interact, but you put them on Classroom and all of a sudden it's a very safe way for them to have a voice. And that's how we started, is just using it as that culture building. And then we started with one assignment. Here's the question after we read, what do you think this character, and then they would go in. And then as we got better with the other tools in Google, Docs, slides, drawings, then we learned how to turn in. And then by the end of the year, it's really mind-boggling to me. From the beginning of the year when I was about to pull my hair out, going through the steps of naming a document, but by the end of the year in May, I need a Google Doc type it up. You have 30 seconds, and even my most struggling students were thumbs up and ready in 20 seconds.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And it's the little wins, isn't it?
It is.
I mean, that's a big deal. It's the little wins that help those students propel themselves forward with everyone else.
Absolutely, and you can see it. You can see the benefits of those struggling students.
Yeah.
How that when they have the voice, they kind of open up. They kind of come alive, and that was something I hadn't really seen. I tried real hard to reach those kids in years prior, but sometimes you just need that tool to do it.
Sure.
So,
Do you guys use anything like GoGuardian or anything like that to actually monitor them in the classroom? There's a lot of them out there. That's one I threw out.
Don't really. This first year with us, it was really my eyes, and honestly, if I were telling someone,
and that's the best way to do it.
You can't sit behind your desk and expect them to follow every procedure. That was a learning curve for the first few weeks too. But I knew that it was really, as you're the educator, you're the adult in the room, you are responsible for, responsible use. And we had digital citizenship lessons. This is how you use it.
Oh, yes.
So they had been prepped. But for the teacher, I actually had a few teachers throughout the year that said, well, I just don't want to deal with the inappropriate use. Well, how many of those kids actually, out of 25, well, I actually taught 50 total because we switched.
Yeah.
Out of 50 kids, I had maybe 3. So what are we going to do? Discount the 47 who used it completely appropriately, deal with the 3 and move on.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, that's really all you can do.
And we've been doing that in education forever.
Well, I was just going to say, and it's no different than the kids who drew not so appropriate pictures in the
notebook.
textbook. I mean, really.
It's the same issue. It's just a different tool.
Just a different, just a different medium. It's really interesting. So, Chromebooks. Do you guys use a lot of web-based other software that you like to use? Do you use anything for a parent, like Seesaw or anything like that, where you maybe? And we'll throw that one out there if you haven't played with Seesaw.
We'll go play with Seesaw. We really, this first year, it was really kind of getting our hands in on just the essentials of Google.
Yeah. Sure.
We did get a few programs. Not every school in the district. It was really up to an individual school to purchase a program. But there were different tools and apps that I would go to my administration and say, I think this might be really good. Some of them were just your basic websites, but the Chromebook and them having the experience of really using it during the day, and it wasn't just a once or twice a week thing, really made the difference.
Yeah.
And with the testing, the typing has become such an issue. I didn't realize when we started computer-based testing 2 years ago, it didn't even occur to me, they've got to know how to type.
Right. Yeah.
Because if they don't know how to type, they're not going to finish in time.
Right, exactly.
I had kids that were outstanding writers but didn't do well because they just didn't have the typing skills.
Sure.
So we would use those apps and those kinds of things, and those were good kind of transition pieces. I would just say, okay, here we go. Go on to the typing app, 4 minutes. You have 4 minutes. Practice as much as you can. And I didn't have engagement issues. I didn't have general behavior issues because they were so engaged in every single thing we did.
Yeah.
And the one thing I would caution, and this is kind of one of my learning curves, was the inappropriate use. What is the consequence for that? And I kind of came to the realization, my first foray into that was, withholding the device. But I learned very quickly, you're withholding the tool that they have the right to use.
Right.
So I had to come up with another kind of system to deal with the behavior and not punish with the tool.
Right.
So that's kind of one of the things that I've told people as sharing what I've learned the past year is be very, very careful and have a plan in place and make sure your consequence is appropriate and you're not punishing with the tool.
Yeah.
Because really, when I look at it, it was a district passed out tool, like a textbook, like
Right.
anything else.
Right.
Well, you wouldn't take the textbook away. I mean, you would find some other consequence,
Right.
and that's what I did. So once we got all that kind of procedural stuff out of the way, it was amazing in May what the difference was in May versus the way we were rolling in September.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
But yeah, it was real. I'm super excited for next year because I feel like I have so much a better base to start
Yeah,
with.
you're going to start
than I
off
did.
2 months
Yeah.
ahead of the game. Yeah.
Yeah, hopefully.
Boom, right into it. So, one other question. 45-second elevator pitch. Tell us summarize what you guys are doing in your session today. Kind of give us a heads up.
In our session, my colleague Julie and I, we are basically the title of the session is Tales of Tech Integration, and it's basically a story how she came in initially to help me get them to know what 45 degrees was and hands in your lap, those kinds of things, to a journey to where we collaborated so extensively that we were designing project-based learning units. It was from start to where we're at now and where we plan to go. So if you need and we're going to give advice if you don't have a tech integration specialist, which a lot of schools, there are educators, that's not an option.
Yep.
How do you go find that collaboration piece? So that's what we'll be doing.
So branding wise, do you guys have that on a Google shared folder somewhere?
We will.
All
We
that
will.
good stuff.
Yep.
So is
Yep.
there a Twitter account or anything some folks can tell you
Yes.
about?
Julie has a Twitter account. I have a Twitter account that I'm going to we did a QR code for it. So
Nice.
we'll
Awesome.
push, look at what I've learned.
Yeah.
So we're going to push that out on
Yeah.
Twitter. And my Twitter is teacher super SUPR power PEWR. So you can find me
Awesome. We'll
on
tweet it
Twitter.
out.
And I'd be willing to, anyone who wants to learn and anyone I can learn from, I greatly appreciate